Let's start with probably the most common one, the burn notice. When your pot displays burn or overheating, this happens when food is sticking to the bottom of your pot. The good news is it's super easy to fix. Add more liquid, and always make sure to deglaze the pot after sauteing. That means scraping all those tasty brown bits off the bottom before pressure cooking. Now let's talk about the dreaded C6 error. This one means your Instant Pot is running too hot, but don't worry. First, unplug your pot and let it cool down for about 10 minutes. Just make sure your pot has good airflow around it, and don't saute for more than 30 minutes at a time. See a C1 error? This means there's a faulty temperature sensor. Try unplugging your pot for a few minutes and plugging it back in. If that doesn't work, check if your pot is sitting on a hot surface or near your stove. If the error persists after moving it to a cool counter and restarting, you might need to contact customer service for this one. The C2 error is actually pretty rare, but it means there's a problem with the temperature control. Again, start by unplugging your pot for about 10 minutes. If it happens again, make sure your heating element isn't covered in food debris. A quick clean of the heating element with a damp cloth usually solves this. Let's tackle C5. This one means your pot isn't getting hot enough. First, check if your house voltage is too low. But more commonly, this happens when there's not enough liquid in the pot to create pressure. The fix? Make sure you're using at least 1 cup of liquid for any pressure cooking recipe. Nopper? This means your pot isn't building pressure properly. First, check your sealing ring. Is it installed correctly? Is it clean? These rings can stretch out over time, so you might need a replacement. Also, make sure your steam release valve is in the sealing position. I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten to check that. If you see a lid on your display, your pot is trying to tell you there's a lid problem. Either the lid isn't on properly or it's not turning and locking correctly. Sometimes food debris can get stuck in the lid mechanism, so give it a good clean, especially around the locking mechanisms. Here's a weird one. Sometimes you might see dashes moving across your display. Don't panic. This actually means your pot is in the process of pressurizing or releasing pressure. It's not an error at all, just your pot doing its thing. Getting an OV error while using the yogurt function? This usually means your milk is too hot. The fix is simple, just let it cool down to below 115 degrees Fahrenheit before adding your starter culture. Let's talk about the PRSE error. This means there's a pressure switch issue. Usually, this happens when the steam release handle isn't properly seated. Remove it, clean it, and put it back on. Make sure it moves freely between venting and sealing positions.